How are borders being torn down by AI? AI-powered education is next. Casey and I are here today to talk about a global topic that connects right into the classroom and then goes out of the classroom and connects right back to the global concern that we all have about what's going on in our world, right? So I had an opportunity to recently travel, and I don't get out of the United States very often, but I actually went to Japan. I was there for 10 days, and the largest among many wonderful things that I took away from my trip. We're not going to talk about this because it's about AI, and this is about AI, okay? So I walked away realizing, so, I know that I might learn a few Japanese words for my trip just to be polite, the necessary ones. And I'm always wanting to be polite. So I made sure I had all those. And then, if you practice with like Duolingo or other things, you may have done that for a year or two and you're pretty good at a couple sentences, but you're really not great at communicating. And if you're going to order off the menu or you're going to get, I mean, everybody travels by train, so you need to know what station to off and on. And there's just a lot of things going on. And how do you really, unless you're with a guide, which a lot of people travel with guides, right? But if you don't, what are you going to do? And what I realized, there are no longer borders because with AI, with chat, I saw on a minute to minute basis, whether it was ordering at Starbucks or ordering at a restaurant or asking where to get on the train station, were people using their phone with Chat GPT translating back and forth. Some people had the volume on and would ask it a question and then hit respond. And so people weren't even having to talk. It was responding back and forth. So a chat is breaking down, or I mean, AI, doesn't matter what tool, Claude, Copilot, you're breaking down the barrier. If you can talk with people, there is no barrier. And I'm going to tie this right now to Casey, like in education, when we can talk to the caregivers, when we can and we're worried about like, oh, do we have time to translate that quick or what? Like this is reality for the globe, and we're thinking we can't do this in classrooms. So Casey, hearing that breaking down of borders with an AI tool, what do you see for that in the classroom?
I think this is the number one reason why we need to embrace AI in education is the simple answer for communication. We as humans, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and we've been communicating just fine, people will say, for centuries and whatnot. No, the number one issue we have in our society is communication, whether that's not being able to express our own thoughts and opinions clearly so that people around us appreciate them and understand and help us, but also to really show our concern for our fellow humans. And what better way to show somebody that you care about them than to try to communicate with them? It's just like in our classrooms as teachers, we get scared of the skibbity riz and all of the new lingo of teens today and 6-7 and oh my gosh, like how many times we're going to hear this? But using those terms not just for like serious communication, but to show that like I care about you enough to learn your language. I care about you enough to speak with you, not to judge you about the things that you're choosing to say. And this works in the global scale, like you're saying. It's not just those simple language barriers that might make us feel like we're living in different worlds, but it's the actual day-to-day operations, like you were saying. You saw this all the time. And how many people have been scared to travel? How many people have been scared to get out into the real world because they don't speak the language, because they're afraid to talk to somebody who doesn't speak their native language or English or whatever it might be? I just feel like you're absolutely right to say like the border of our language border is what's being just kind of completely taken down. And like we're not having those major barriers that stop us from getting out, from communicating
Yeah.
with others.
Yeah. And when I watched it, at the beginning, it was to use to use an AI tool was definitely transactional. Definitely like I need this drink or I need to buy this washing machine or I need to know where the train station is. Can you help me? Whatever. But once that communication would go back and forth, it moved completely out of transactional to transformational and really just people and then laughing and talking and exchanging like, addresses like on Instagram, these are, again, I'm kind of talking about a certain age group, young people, up to age 30, 35, all the way down. That's how, if there's a foreigner in their country or back and forth, that's how they're communicating and completely doing it. And then building, like you said, communication, building relationships with people that they would have never had a chance to communicate with because they would have just said, like thank you in the language and then, gotten out and had no chance to communicate or build a relationship for later on. It was, and again, I just like walked away thinking the border is gone when it comes to communication and language. I'm not saying it's not, funky and odd, but it's what it is. And I know that we both have probably seen this where the new earbuds are coming that will actually translate for you so you can see how this is going to work and how that will change everything. So when we're in the classroom again, like, oh, I don't know, should I use translate when I call that caregiver that might be speaking a different? Of course. Of
Yep.
course, there's no question. This is what's going
Mm-hmm.
on around the world. Why are we not doing it with our own people in our own classroom that need
Well,
that?
and I think that the time has come where we can trust, and I know that's like really intimidating to say, like trust the services of translation, because I think that's been a big fear of mine is if I can't read or understand the language that I'm having something translated in, how do I know it's accurate? How do
Mhm.
I know that it's really sending the right message? And I think I feel way more comfortable today using those tools to communicate, and not knowing the language, because I think it's had enough time to get the parameters and to set the right things, and also really using the best quality sources, and vetting some and talking then to people who do know the language that you're using and say, hey, how does this sound to you? You know this language, but then
Right.
also, you know, trying it back and forth a few different times and testing the waters, and taking the time to, again, show that you care about the people around you enough to learn the language,
Yeah.
right? And maybe
Right.
if you learn a few pieces of that language, you can really then say, hey, this translation is key. This is what's going to express my thoughts and opinions best.
Yeah. So again, just, I had an opportunity to travel, but when I walked away with was just to realize that how we can break down that barrier. And that barrier is even in all of our classrooms if we have speakers that are, different than what we, our limited capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's open it up to all that and connect and not be afraid of it because it's here, it's happening, and you can watch it globally. Thank you.
Thank you.